Local officials say the Russian attack on the village of Hroza killed more than 50 people. Many of the victims had been attending a funeral wake. The White House described the strike as horrifying, and the British Prime Minister said it illustrated Moscow's barbarity. James Waterhouse reports now from Kyiv.
This body is badly burnt, says the rescuer. Maybe you'll recognise them. No, it's not her, the woman replies. Missile attacks are an almost daily occurrence here, but rarely are they this destructive. A well-rehearsed routine for emergency crews, which doesn't get any easier.
My brother, sister-in-law, and my mother were killed.
Alexander's family were at a funeral wake of a local soldier. Most of the victims had been sitting around a large table inside a cafe. A shared moment of grief cut short. Ruslan says, constantly we were pulling out someone. It was a nightmare. Ukraine accuses Russia of launching a short-range ballistic missile, killing more than 50 in a village of 300.
We were in a town nearby and heard an explosion. We were then told that something happened in Hroza, and we came because my mother was here.
Ringtones fill the silence from the phones of the dead.
Russian military knew where they were striking. It was not a blind attack. People had gathered there for a memorial meal. Who could launch a missile at them? Only absolute evil.
At a speech in Sochi, Vladimir Putin didn't reference the attack, but suggested Ukraine would be dead within a week if its Western help was to stop. Ukraine is fighting to prevent that from happening. But it's hurting. James Waterhouse, BBC News, Kyiv.
Our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, is in Kyiv, and he sent us this update.
There have been pretty continual at times attacks by drones and missiles at different parts of Ukraine by the Russians, but this one, of course, has had terrible consequences, one of the worst single attacks of the war. President Zelensky, who was in Spain meeting European leaders, said that it was absolute evil. He said that you can't call the Russians animals because it would be an insult to animals. Now, the Ukrainians say that this funeral was deliberately targeted. We don't have definitive proof of that. We just have their statement and what they're doing. It makes you wonder exactly what the people who fired that missile were trying to achieve. Strategically, it doesn't change the war. What it does do, of course, spread terror among civilians, though I think it will also remind Ukrainians yet again why it is that they're fighting. In the wider context of what's going on in the war, all this comes at a difficult time for the Ukrainians because cracks have appeared in Western support for them. Now, it's not going to dry up overnight. Far from it. It's going to continue. But the whole principle of supporting Ukraine has become important in elections in Poland and in Slovakia, and as well as that, in the United States, in Washington, hard-line Republicans have managed to delay the latest tranche of American support. Now, that money will start flowing again, but I think for the Ukrainians, it is a big worry at a time when their summer offensive has not broken through the Russian lines as they had hoped and as their allies had hoped. Now, the Ukrainians believe they don't have a choice. They have to go on fighting the Russians. They have to try and win their territory back. But their Western backers, without whom they couldn't fight, do have a choice about what they do. They do have a choice about how much they spend, the impact it has on their economies in terms of gearing up to more of a war economy, because it's going to be a long war, and they have to make now those difficult decisions about the way they go.